Got this 2014 Hyundai Santa Fe here. It came in because a woman took it in for emission testing and it failed. So you can see we have a large leak detected as well as a vent control circuit open. So I told her over the phone it's either going to be a bad vent valve or a broken wire somewhere. And the reason why we have the large leak is because the vent valve is normally open, so when the computer tries to close it, it sends a command. But if the vent valve isn't closing, well, that's a large leak right there. So we're not going to worry about the leak because the problem here is this circuit. So what I did was I grabbed one of my Nord lights, and the vent valve is right underneath the driver's seat right here. And it's really simple to unplug, so I just unplugged it, plugged in my Nord light, and I tried to use my scanner to activate the vent valve, and I wasn't getting anything out of it. My test light wasn't lighting up, so I started searching, and it didn't take long to find the green crusties. You can see we got a broken wire right there. So that's what's going on here. That's why we have a circuit code. So I'm gonna go ahead and repair this. After the repair, I'll go ahead and test it, make sure it is turning on my test light. So I was able to depin the connector. You can see we got the broken short wire out of it. So I'm just gonna open up this crimp right here, and we'll put a longer piece of wire on it so that we could work with it and solder it onto the existing harness coming off of the car. And that should be it. So let me get you guys a finished shot of this thing. So here goes my extension. As you can see, we have plenty of wire to work with, and of course I'm gonna have to trim it back once I get it on the actual car. This blue weather pack right here, once I got it out of the way and we got down to the actual terminal right here with the wire crimped inside of it, I couldn't break that connection, and I didn't want to take the chance of damaging this end because I don't have a replacement. So instead of removing that piece of wire, I decided to leave it there, leave it in its crimp, and I just stripped it back until we had nice clean wire. It was about maybe 3/8 of an inch, and I just soldered that onto my new existing wire. After it was soldered, I sprayed everything with CRC to protect from corrosion, and then I put heat shrink over the whole thing. So as you can see, it looks pretty good. I think it'll be a very good repair. Okay, so I have my repair all done. You can see I got the harness tucked up there where it belongs. It's plugged back in, and we have the end that goes into the vent valve. I got my Nord light connected once again. And on my scanner here, I already have the vent valve pulled up. So let's go ahead and turn it on. There we go. Let's go ahead and turn it off. And there we go. So before, when I ran this test, the Nord light would not turn on, indicating we weren't getting power here. That's why there was a circuit code. It's all fixed now. As you can see, the Nord light does turn on. So I'm gonna go ahead, plug in the vent valve, clear the codes, and this one should be all set. And I know someone's gonna ask about the vent valve, so it is plugged in. Let's go ahead and activate it. You hear it click, turn it off. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cycle it one more time. All right, so that's it. If there's an issue with the vent valve, then we'll find out later. But as far as the circuit code, that problem is fixed. Got a 2014 Chevy Equinox. This car was just here not so long ago. I did the rear brakes on it. The rear brakes were grinding. And it's back again because she's saying as she's driving a car, and more specifically as she comes to a stop, the engine starts to stall and stumble and misfire, and almost like it wants to turn off. She said it doesn't quite turn off, but it's just a lot of stumbling, and it doesn't have all the power that it normally has. Now, I'm here looking. I don't see a check engine light. I'm going to assume the check engine light does not work on this car. I'll put those pictures back in a moment. But because we got codes here, guys, and where's the check engine light? Not here. So I'm going to assume that check engine light is not working. Sure, I could cycle the key, but I don't care to do that right now. Yeah, look at that. Not surprised. Intake camshaft, exhaust camshaft performance, misfire, yeah. Okay, so the main problem here that's causing all this stumbling is this right here. These engines have a high failure rate for the camshaft solenoids to like physically get jammed. Like the metal screen on them breaks apart and they get wedged. So let's see if that's what's going on. Even right now, I don't know if you guys can hear that over me talking, but the engine is stumbling and it's idling funny. So I could tell right now these solenoids are not doing what they're supposed to. And let's see if we can pull up some data right here on the scanner. So So looking at the data right here, I'm not seeing anything that jumps out at me, at least not for me. Maybe someone else can tell. But desired exhaust is 5 and actual exhaust is 5. Desired intake is 16 and actual intake is 16. You can see the percentage is bouncing around. It varies from intake to exhaust. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything that just jumps right up out at me. Maybe it's just me. I'm sure someone else could probably figure this out right here. But those solenoids are super easy to get to. They're right on top. So let's go ahead, pop them out, and see if we could notice anything wrong. As you can see, I got both of the solenoids removed, and I'm not seeing anything obvious here. This is what I was talking about, the little strainer or screen on the outside. It'll sometimes fall apart and get wedged inside the solenoid. But guys, that's not what's going on here. Okay, these things look perfectly fine to me. And my next step is, if that looks fine, is the oil. Okay, because these things run off of oil pressure, and I'm sure some of you watch right now, you're yelling at the screen already. Check the oil first. So anyway, pulled out the dipstick. You can see it's as clean as a whistle, right? Let's go ahead and put this in here. You can see completely bottomed out. I can't push it in any further. And clean as a whistle. She's driving around with no oil in this engine. That's why these things can't do their job, because they need oil and oil pressure in order to do their job. If there's no oil in the engine, they can't do their job. What we're going to do is, she wants to change the spark plugs because she's had the car for about 4 years, 4 or 5 years, has never done a tune-up. If you look at the age of the car, which is a 14 model, she's had it for 5 years. Okay, so we're in 2022. You take off those 5 years, that only leaves us with a handful of years left. And in that time frame, people don't normally change spark plugs. So for all we know, this thing could be running on OEM spark plugs back from 2014. Who knows? Anyway, it's going to get new spark plugs. I'm going to recommend a throttle body cleaning. You can see how dirty all of that is inside of there. And of course, the real fix here is doing an oil change on this car and making sure it has oil. I got all 4 spark plugs out, and they don't look horrible. If you look at the action side, looks pretty normal. It's what I would expect to see compared to a brand new one right here. All right, so let's go ahead and pop the new ones in. And it looks like we are going to be removing this throttle body to clean it out. I sent her some links on Rock Auto. So I told her basically get things like a air filter, cabin air filter. This is for the breather hose going into the air intake, just in case it was restricted in any way. It's a really cheap part, so you could get a OEM part. And then this is the gasket for the throttle body. So I figured I was going to want to remove the throttle body to give it a good cleaning. So let's replace the gasket while we're in there, as well as, of course, the spark plugs. So that's what's going on the car today. And I just talked to the owner, and she's on her way. She's going to bring me the oil and the oil filter. I got the throttle body off, and see, got some carbon buildup on the inside, a bit on the outside as well. So let's just go ahead, clean this up, and we'll pop it back on with the brand new gasket. So I'm all done with this thing. You can see both sides look better than they did before, and I even cleaned up the mating surface right here where the new gasket is gonna sit. So that looks really good. Well, it looks like some wild animal was having a 3-course meal inside this bad boy. This looks like a whole chicken leg. What the hell? Look at that. That's crazy. He ate good that night. So I got everything put back together. Oil change is done. Complete tune-up is done. The only thing I have to do left is change the cabin air filter. But all of this is put back together. So let's go ahead and start up the engine. I already cleared the codes. Let's see what happens. Turns out we do have a check engine light. So it's not that it's blown out there. It just wasn't turned on for whatever reason. I guess those codes didn't call for a check engine light, which is weird because we even had misfire codes, and yet still the car didn't flag the check engine light. I have no idea. Oh, you could definitely tell there was a point where it took a while for oil to get to where it needs to go. It's running good. I don't feel any misfires or anything. The next step is to start taking it out for a test drive and try to replicate what the woman was experiencing. I even noticed it while it was here in the driveway without even moving. Just sitting here at idle, I could feel the engine stumbling, and so far so good. So I was about to close the hood on this car, but something sounds weird to me. Oh, never mind. It's just a damn cover. I'm pretty sure I locked it into its place. There's a rubber mount that it falls in, and I'm 100% sure I locked that one in. But there doesn't seem to be anything up front, and it's just resting on the valve cover here, causing that noise. You know, I'm like, is that piston slap or rod knock, whatever? Nope, it's just the engine cover. All right. Before we go out for that test drive, let's look at the same data that we were looking at before. What I'm noticing is everything looks a lot more stable. The numbers aren't bouncing around like it was before. Like, it wasn't trying to me it seemed like before it was trying to like correct its idle. It kept adjusting things to try to get things for the engine to run right. And now that it's running nice and smooth, you can see everything just looks a lot more stable here. So I decided to just change the cabin air filter before I go out for a test drive. And look at this, guys. That is just dirt packed inside of there. That's crazy. Only God knows how long this air filter has been on here. I wonder if it says anything. No, it just says made in USA. I would have to look up these part numbers to see if it's an OEM part indicating that it's never been changed. I have no idea, but that's pretty nasty. Let's go ahead and pop the new one on. I've been test driving the Chevy around, and it's as smooth as butter, guys. There is absolutely no stumbling, no misfiring, nothing. It just drives normal. So this thing is fixed, and I'm gonna go ahead and call the owner and pick it up. I'm really happy I was able to get this thing fixed so soon for her, because she told me when she dropped it off, she was like, you know what, I've been driving a car like this for a few days, but I can't take this anymore. Just do what you gotta do to get it fixed. Even if you need it till tomorrow, you can. She said, I'll call off of work, that's fine. So I'm really happy to get it done so fast, get the car fixed, and she doesn't have to call off of work tomorrow, so she could pick it up and this thing's all set. Got a 2009 Ford Escape here. It's here because the front left caliper has locked up on the owner while he was driving, and of course you can't drive like that, right? So it's getting 2 front calipers today, 2 front brake hoses. This isn't the first time the owner has had issues with the caliper locking up. A few months ago, he had a similar issue on the same front left wheel, the side I'm working on right now, and the caliper locked up, and then, you know, from pushing the pedal so hard, the brake hose actually ruptured. So he was able to get it into a, if I remember correctly, a Advanced Auto Parts parking lot. And then one of the employees that worked there, he got out, you know, got off of his shift, and he said he was a mechanic. So he came out and he replaced the busted brake hose for him. Okay, got everything all done. And by the way, ever since he did that job, the owner has been complaining about the brake pedal not feeling right, and that whenever the ABS activates, the pedal just goes all the way to the floor. So, and I've driven it to confirm it the last time he was here a few weeks ago. And yeah, it does feel super sketchy whenever the ABS is activating, but beyond that, the brakes feel fine. It's only when the ABS turns on. Anyway, so last night, the front left caliper locked up on him again, and he was like, you know what, I'm done with this. Let's just go ahead and change the calipers. That's why we're changing them. All right, so I'm in the middle of this job. You can see I got the new caliper in place. I got the new hose right here being routed, and then I go to connect the fitting to our new brake hose, and I can't, because the guy who installed the last line in the parking lot of Advanced Auto stripped out the threads. And the reason why it wasn't leaking before is because he basically cross-threaded it in order for it to seal. Horse shit, right? Now I gotta deal with this. I'm gonna have to let the owner know about this and see if there's anything I could do about this. I have no idea. Yeah, this sucks. What do you expect from a mechanic from Advanced Auto Parts? Hey, let me get off of my shift. I'll go out there and fix your car. I'm a certified mechanic. So I grabbed a brand new fitting for my collection. I got a few different types. So I found one that threads into here, and then I used that. I went over to my thread checker, found out the thread pitch, Then I grabbed a die, and as you can see, this is the die I was using, and I'm just using my pliers to hold the die because the traditional like T-handle, like one of these things, the holder for the die, isn't gonna fit in this location right here, so it's why I'm using my pliers to hold it. And then I'm using a ratcheting wrench, and it's important to have the kind that has the switch right here. It just speeds things up. So anyway, went ahead and ran the die over the nut here, and you can see we actually have threads now. It's not just all flattened out how it was before. So I'm gonna see if this will work, and we'll get this all cleaned up and put back together. As you can see, it did start to thread in, and it all threaded in by hand. So if I go ahead and spin a nut, you can see I'm able to start threading it on with my hand, no tools at all. You know, this type of stuff just really frustrates me. If you don't know what you're doing, stop messing up other people's cars. Yes, I'm talking to you, Nathan. I see you watching. Damn you, Nathan. So that sealed up nicely. Everything went together pretty good. Can't complain. Of course, I'm gonna keep a special eye on that one when I'm bleeding the system. Make sure we have no leaks at all. Now, when it comes down to these type of calipers that have this type of retainer clip, I really like to put some grease right here, right where this thing rides. You can see that because it's just metal on metal contact right here. So grab a little bit of grease, and we're just going to give it the classic dirty Sanchez. That's all it takes, and we'll put the clip on it. So I just finished starting up the engine, pushing the brake pedal. We have a nice good pedal pressure now. Before, it felt like you were just pushing up against a hard brick, like the pedal didn't really want to move. And that's usually when I see when calipers are locked up or something's not right. You don't get much travel in that pedal, and now it feels like a normal pedal. Unfortunately, you know, because of the amount of pressure that this thing was applying to the brake pads, you can see his brake pads are very, very low. You guys probably can't see because of the sun glare. But yeah, his pads are very low. You can look at the slide pins and see how extended they are. So he's going to need brake pads very soon on this thing. And of course, I was applying heavy pedal pressure just to make sure we don't have any leaks. And up here, of course, you want to make sure you dry everything off. I use just acetone or brake parts cleaner, whatever you want to use, and everything's nice and dry. And after heavy brake pedal pressure, you can see completely dry. Same thing over here. Oh, that's a little wet. What is that? See what I mean? Let me go ahead and check what this is. Okay, nothing to be alarmed about. Basically, the fitting right here is completely dry. Nothing coming off it. What happened was, see the little rubber dongle right here? That is full of brake fluid from when I was bleeding the system. So as I was going like this with my finger touched the little rubber dongle, and that's how I got brake fluid on my finger. But I can assure you, the actual fitting down here, 100% dry. So I'm here on the front right side, and the first thing that caught my attention was the color of the rotor. You guys see that? It's got like this crispy burnt look to it, almost like a set of chicken nuggets. That's what's going on here. You got that chicken nugget rotor. Anyway, look at the pads. Now, I did not do this prying on them or anything because I wasn't prying on them. That's just how they look when they came off. Look at this side too. So looking at this, I'm like, I think this is the caliper that was locking up, and owner was mistaken the front left side. I have no doubt that both of them need to be replaced, but just for the sake of checking, I decided to try to push in the piston. Now I really don't need to because this caliper is getting replaced either way. But I just wanted to check it, and of course I can't push in this piston, at least not without a decent amount of force. So realistically, the side that recently locked up on him was the front right side. Yeah, so doesn't really matter. I'm gonna go ahead and change out this caliper and this brake hose as well. We'll put the old pads on it, and of course this thing needs at very least new pads. The rotors are kind of toasty, but the surface of where it mates up with the pads looks decent. So this is one thing I hate about aftermarket parts, is sometimes these castings are not 100% right. It's not the first time I've ran into issues like this. Okay, so the bracket itself is completely bolted down, and I'm holding down the rotor against the hub with a nut right here. And if we look at the gaps, you can see we have a decent gap back there in front of here. I know it looks close, but that looks decent to me. That looks decent. But look at this.
there is a gap, but that's way too close for my liking. And if we look straight on the casting here, you can see how it just kind of has a taper outward, so it like tapers that way. If you would put a brand new rotor on this, that might be making contact, so I'm gonna have to clearance this. There we have it. We have plenty of clearance now. It doesn't look like much, but I could see that's more than enough, and I'm okay with that. Even if the owner decided to get brand new rotors, it's still gonna clear, so it's looking pretty good. All I did was take the bracket over to the vise, and I used my die grinder to remove some of that material on the inside right there. So all four corners look good. It looks like there's plenty of clearance. Now let me go ahead and wrap all of this up. So this side's all set. I turned the engine on, checked for leaks, everything's nice and dry, and I even went ahead and bled the system, first using the gravity bleed by opening up the bleed valves and letting the fluid start to drip out all by itself. And even after that, the pedal felt great. But I did end up using the scanner here to do a ABS bleed service, and I went through all of that process. The pedal feels good, so I'm pretty sure this thing's all set. Like I said, no more leaks. So let me go ahead and put the wheel back on. And by the way, this side went just as expected. It went much faster than the front left side because we didn't have to deal with Nathan stripping out the threads. So that went on super smooth. Let me go ahead and pop the wheels on it, and we'll take this bad boy out for a test drive. So I'm in this Ford Escape. Listen to this. There's a weird noise coming from the back of the car that only seems to be there when I'm turning. It sounds like a knocking noise. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn right. It seems to be worse whenever I turn right. So when that noise is happening, I could almost feel like a shudder coming from the rear end, like something like skipping or hop. I don't know, it's just weird. This thing is all-wheel drive, and I can almost guarantee you that that rear differential has never been serviced. Anyway, the brakes feel great, absolutely fantastic. I can tell that the calipers are not hanging up. Everything's working as it should. Now, unfortunately, I can't replicate the problem of the brake pedal sinking whenever the ABS activates, because I can't get the ABS to activate. Basically, it's such a hot and sticky day. Well, I don't want to say sticky, but it's plenty warm out here that the tires are just sticking to the ground. They're not slipping at all in order to activate the ABS. So no matter how hard I get on the brakes, it just makes the tires screech. Let's see, try it here. There goes tire screeching, and you know what? The ABS did activate just a hair right there because I went over some bumps and I did not feel the pedal sink. Let's see if I can do it one more time. Do a really hard brake here. Yep, guys, that's a confirmation that it is fixed. I did feel the ABS activate right there, and the pedal did not sink. It stood nice and solid how it should be. So that's it. The brakes work good. The calipers are no longer sticking. The pedal no longer sinks to the floor during ABS activation, and the owner can't come pick it up. I'm gonna go ahead and park this turd, and this thing's all set.